All right, let's try it. Ready?
Oh, first try. Lauren's now in charge of sound. Laura's in charge of sound.
I'm hearing that staticky stuff you were talking about. Lauren's the new audio engineer.
Yeah, I just got a promotion.
Engineer for life.
Stop it too. Got the whole dance floor.
Oh. Did you do some choreography?
Oh, there we go. Sweet.
I'll work on that.
Nice job. What's up, everybody? I'm at a remote location today, or well, a different location than I normally am. I'm at my buddy Steve's house in Denver, and I was just telling Tara that it was 94 degrees on Tuesday, and it snowed like crazy on Wednesday.
Oh, that's
or not,
crazy.
Maybe that was Monday and Tuesday, something like that. Anyway, it was a big snowflakes. It was fun.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Did you go out and play in the snow?
I didn't go out, actually. I wasn't. I mean, I liked watching it, but I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
Emotionally, so I didn't go outside.
I was telling Shayne, we're like the mid-60s up here, and I wore a fleece jacket this morning to drop off Susanna, and I'm like, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
No, I'm not
2
ready.
months from now, perfect. Not yet.
Yeah, I'm definitely not ready. I'm going to suck in the last bits of summer for sure.
Yeah. You had a big weekend. If you want to stop sharing your sound, you could probably do that. And then
oh, sorry.
You had a big weekend, like the family and stuff. You guys went on
Yeah, we did. We just like rented a house in Hilton Head and had my parents and my siblings come, and it was fun. We had a good time. It was it was great. Like the weather was okay. Like it rained a bit, but it wasn't too hot, which was great. So
yeah,
it was fun, and it was nice. My mom is very helpful and with Cece, so I felt like we were, kind of got to relax. So it was a good time.
That's always a plus.
Yes. Next time, we don't spend a ton of time. I mean, Hilton Head's very close to us. So we don't spend a lot of time there, but we oddly enough went last year Labor Day weekend, and now we went this year. But the one thing we have taken away is you just need to bring your bikes. Like it's a great place to bike ride. There's so many nature trails and stuff like that. And you can walk, but with a 2-year-old, walking is
it takes 10 days to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
there's tricycles.
Bikes. Yeah. So bikes next time.
Yeah.
Note to self.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, Tara, your paint. I didn't even notice that.
Oh.
It looks so nice.
Our house has been repainted all one color and not, a good old 90s color in every single room. And everything's slowly getting back to normal as far as my desk and stuff like that. So
nice. That's good.
Yeah.
We got to figure out our desks. Yeah. It's nice to have a change, I'm sure.
Absolutely. After staring at like darker brown walls, it's very light.
Yeah, it does. It looks very bright in there.
Those guys I don't know if they see I can message them. They're in the waiting room. I'll go ahead and let those guys in. How about that?
That sounds great.
Yeah. The special guest shall arrive. I'm excited about this one because I feel like I'm going to get schooled. I'm looking forward to it.
Both of us. Hi, Kathryn. Oh, she's connecting to audio.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. That's for sure.
There's a lot going on in that email world.
This is John's style right here. He's got his camera blacked out and his microphone off. That's how he rolls.
It's been a day.
He's got one of those very genius little things that slides over your camera so nobody can see what's going on.
Yeah, it's ingenious. It is it's a note card that was cut and folded very engineeringly, cut and folded so that it blocked the lens but did not block the microphones on either side of the lens. And then because of the fact it's taped so that there's a hinge to the back of it, but because when you leave it open, it kind of muscle memory learns that it wants to stay back, and then you've got to flip it forward again so it doesn't come all the way down. So I went and I got one of those little peel and stick deals that you put under furniture for on a hardwood floor so it doesn't scuff. I stuck one of those to the front of it over the lens to give it a little weight to kind of pull it down. So I mean, there was a lot that went into
Yeah,
this.
That's
Talk about
complicated.
engineering.
That's right.
Talk about some engineering there.
I knew we were bringing some smart people in today. I knew that.
Yeah. You wonder who on this call is in engineering.
Yeah,
I think I need to document this in our repo somewhere.
Yes,
Well,
please
and
do.
my Post-it note that hides my camera.
Are you all going to show us your face though during our meeting today, John?
If I go by my laptop, it's got the blue painter's tape over it. So instead of a black screen like that, you see a blue screen, which I feel is befitting of Windows.
Really mix it up.
Give me a second to run and grab some water, and I'll be right back.
So was that to make sure I'm following you though, John? We're not going to see you today.
Shane really wants to see you.
Yeah, this is like.
I don't know if I've ever actually seen John Allen.
Hilarious. The man, the myth. We're going to have to at least put his profile picture on here with the friggin' sunglasses. I mean, how
do
could
some
we not
editing.
do that?
I've been working with him for years, and seriously, I don't think I've ever met him.
I've never seen him in person.
That's so funny.
Not even
Legendary.
I don't think he really exists. That's what I'm going with.
There's a lot of stuff at Blackbaud that happens behind this black curtain, and he's one of those things. It happens behind the black curtain. You're like, oh boy.
See how I did that? So I lifted it, but now you have to see the palm of my hand.
Oh, come
It's
on.
going to be a slow reveal.
So now I could do this.
Oh, like the beer steins.
I like the
Those
steins.
are good. These are my Six Flags beer steins. I was with Six Flags for a decade, and we had Oktoberfest every year. And
Nice.
in the tradition of Oktoberfest, we would have the tapping of the kegs at the beginning of each day. And the way it works in like real Oktoberfest in real Germany is that when you tap the kegs, the dignitaries taste it. If the beer is pronounced good, Oktoberfest continues. If the beer is pronounced bad, Oktoberfest comes to an immediate halt. So we would emulate that. Obviously, nobody ever declared it bad, but it was a big deal if you were dubbed a dignitary for any one of the opening days. We would always tap at the beginning. It was a 3-day weekend, and we would always tap at the beginning of each day. So it was big stink if you were selected to be a dignitary, and I got to do so 7 times by my
Wow.
math.
Wow. So
That
we're
was
in the presence
pretty
of
big
greatness
stuff.
Quite the run.
Plus, I mean, you were drinking beer at 10 o'clock in the morning, so
Oh, where are you located?
at work.
No, what are you in Hawaii?
What?
No, he means
Where are
like
you?
during Oktoberfest he was drinking beer.
Oh,
No,
I
actually,
thought you
I was
meant
in-
right now. It's 10
Dave's
o'clock
like,
in the
"Were
morning.
you
but-
located
hold
in
on.
Japan?"
I'm just drinking beer.
What? All right,
I thought you were talking about right now. Sorry.
Cut him off. He's reached his limit. No. He's over here sending me notes about, this is what the environment is like here in our little group and stuff, and it's really laid back and it's real casual. And I'm like, yeah, but you won't let me in. I'm sitting here staring at the screen that says the host has to let you in, and I'm like, really? Your bar is that high that even I
It's
can't?
very official. I have to be admitted every single week.
Oh, yeah.
He's the gatekeeper.
He heard the thing about the restraining order.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, we want details on that.
Yeah.
The lawyer said I'm not allowed to talk about it while the investigation is underway. And, pretty sure Kathryn's held to the same standard. So, nope.
We'll loop back to that.
Yeah.
All right. So, by the way, anybody who tells you this week is a short week is lying, because
Right.
I am
It's 60 hours and 4 days.
so
Exactly.
buried under short week right now. It's not even funny.
Well, it depends if you want to call Spam House and Spam Cop.
We got hit by Spam House this week. One of our clients stepped in it.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Look, I just wanted our audience to see your profile picture. This is what most people only know this John Allen. Well, most people
This
don't
is
even know John
pandemic,
Allen.
John. That's not. That's everyday, John. This is pandemic, John.
I was going to say, I feel like we may be getting catfished by this picture.
No, that's actually me.
No,
That's
a lot of
my,
people at
that's
Blackbaud
my
don't know
attorney
you
running
exist.
for office picture. And only twice in my life have I ever had my hair very long. This is closing in on the second time, and it's just
Now better than ever to do it.
I'm an information guy, and there's not enough information yet for me to wander into a haircut place. I mean, it took me a little bit to work my way up to the dentist. And when I walked in
That's
there,
fair.
it was like they were total hazmat and everything. And I went, okay, this looks
I can work with
good.
this.
This looks good. And then my next one will be the eye doctor. And honestly, I mean, a haircut, it's just seems so frivolous in priority.
Shayne agrees completely.
I agree. I mean, I just did mine myself. I just.
Do you want to borrow some? I mean,
yeah, I do actually. Well, I'd like to keep it.
I haven't gotten mine cut at all, and I'm kind of just seeing like how long it can go. We'll see. It may get kind of to the point where I just need to cut it, but until then, I'm going to ride it out.
Mine is halfway to where the longest has been, and that was just actually as I came to Blackbaud 4 years ago, and it was simply because, again, priorities. There was so much involvement in, oh my gosh, I have a new job and I'm going to relocate. Now all of those projects that I had started at my old home, I had a timeline to get them finished. And I was scrambling to get all of that done. And then all of a sudden there was the move here, and there was the find a place to live, and then find a real place to live, and then, and start a new job and new people and new bosses and all the rest of this. And
No time for a haircut. Come on.
Suddenly it was a year. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, when it got to like 8 or 9 months, I'm like, well, I'm already invested in it at this point. Let's just go for a year, So I got to a year, and I'm like, all right, so here we are. We're at a year. Now what? Do we just write off the year and get it cut? This seems kind of like a waste, though. So I did some research around, donating and what were the requirements to donate. And everybody's like, well, you need to have, anywhere between 8 inches and 12 inches of hair. And I went, well, I'm not there yet. So let's see, doing some math. All right, I need to let this grow for another year. Now I had a purpose behind it. So I endured all of the comments and all of the, what they call the awkward phase as it does just terrifying things. Goes this way on Monday, this way on Tuesday, and every which way on Wednesday. So got to just about the 2-year mark, and I had actually flown back home to visit my parents at the holidays. And so I went back to the same girl who'd been cutting my hair for the last 12 years. And she's like, holy cow. And I said, I told you I hadn't been cheating on you. And she cut it.
It's loyalty right there.
Yeah. And so she cut it, and we donated it, and that was a good thing. And then it's just kind of been, haven't really found anybody down here. And
where do you live, John?
I'm in Hanahan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Along with like 9/10 of Blackbaud, it seems. So I just hadn't found anybody. I was getting it cut at the nickel dime place, and then COVID hit, and I'm like, all right, whatever. And here we are. It's in definite whatever state. So, yeehaw. All right.
Tell us about email stuff. So we've got, unless I'm not in a hurry, but I know you told us we have 30 minutes. So
I can move that. My team is fantastic to work with. During our stand up yesterday, I mentioned to Luke that we might run, long because of this, and he said, if you need to move my one-on-one, do it. Okay. Which, I was trained in the mindset that the one-on-one is not my time with you, it is your time with me. So you kind of drive what we do with the one-on-one. You drive what we talk about. You drive, is it okay if I move your time with me? And he was very gracious and said, move where you want. That's fine. I'm like, okay. So got a little wiggle room that I didn't have before.
Okay.
Thanks, Luke.
So what do you want to talk about email? I mean, email is this big, and essentially, even if we use every single moment of the time that's left, that's about this much of it. So
I
Right.
have a pretty
pick where you
good
want to go. Do you want to talk about Spam House? Do you want to talk about
idea.
authentication? Do you want to talk about things that I'm working on? Because I guess for 4 years I was under the assumption that this was already covered, and it wasn't, which was warming our clients when they come
Warming,
to us.
great topic, great topic.
Oh, nice.
Well, I was shocked / a little horrified to find out we don't do that.
We used to
kinda
not do
like,
that? Or
welcome to Blackbaud. Here's your customer, here's your bling, and there's your product. Go ahead, start sending email now. And if you have problems, file a ticket, John will cover you. And it really should not be that way. We should.
You know what I'd like to do to start the conversation though is just kind of give some framework for instead of talking about what the couple of things we don't do is, I think it's a unique opportunity to have you here because you really sit like right on the pulse. I mean, he's literally on top of the generators that are spitting out the emails every day, and you can really see it's like how the industry is changing. And I've been working with you for 4 years, pretty much since you first started. And in those 4 years, that was what, right about Gmail Gate?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I've got this interesting little timeline that I might have created at one point that shows kind of the history of the spam wars. If somebody can share, I can send it.
Well, we can let you share, Kathryn. We haven't properly introduced you guys. So Shayne, Tara, Lauren, everybody, our viewers, hopefully this is not the first podcast they're seeing. They sort of know us. They've gotten to know us the last few episodes. But Kathryn and I have been working together for a long time. When I left Blackbaud and ended up at Kintera, which was later acquired by Blackbaud, but Kathryn and I worked together closely there. And then John, one of my really large accounts who has millions of records, of course, when you're sending out millions of emails, you're going to have your act together. So I've got to know John through the interactions of, a big email file like that and hitting spam traps. So I think in general, the way I want to head into this, or what's on my mind is, gosh, people don't understand how complex this issue is.
Mm-hmm.
And they really don't understand how important it is that they get it right. I think they kind of know that it's important and that it's hard to get into the inbox, get your emails into the inbox, but they don't really understand everything that goes on behind the scenes with a company like Blackbaud, who's managing millions and millions of emails going out every single day and trying to get those emails into an inbox or set of inboxes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my head is heading into this thing. I don't know if Lauren and Tara, if you guys want to. And by the way, I love both of these guys. I love this one thing. I mean, we have our good days and bad days at Blackbaud, but we've got some really smart people in it. And it's encouraging to me to know that we got people like Kathryn and John behind the scenes doing stuff.
That's right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's just the complexity, I think, is underestimated, actually. And I think that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about what Blackbaud can do to help, but also what the client really needs to do themselves to be on the good side of things. So we're excited to have you guys here. It's a big topic. We know maybe we'll need a part 2 or 3, but let's start with part 1.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing too is you realize it's been 15 years since we started working together, Shayne?
That's wild, isn't it?
When you were about 15 and
well, I wish.
Yeah. But and so I would date my time working with email delivery and kind of nonprofit email to when I started working at Kintera with you. And at that time, the industry was really different. We were just getting past the point where the goal was to send as many emails as you could, and there really weren't that many limits. And the real thing that you relied on your email provider for was, you've got to have servers with a good reputation. And if your servers from your provider had a good reputation, you could get your emails delivered. So just like crank up the email engine. And at that time, we were coaching people to just acquire emails and send emails. And I think that has changed almost as much as something can change because the way the industry has shifted, and partly in response to email becoming such an important channel for everybody to get their information about life. So at that time, a nonprofit email had a very high chance of being read. Now it's got a very small chance of being read. And there are things that you can do to ensure that they do get read, but you have to know that it isn't just Blackbaud's responsibility. And if the responsibility is on you, exactly what practices to put into place. I think what the wonderful opportunity with John here is that John sees these shifts. It's sometimes tectonic shifts in the industry that happen, like 2016 with what we call Gmail Gate. And then was it 2 years ago with GDPR, the European privacy standard? For gosh sakes, who would think that that would influence email delivery in the US? But it did. And it changed John's life tremendously, because I think I remember we went from him tracking down 1 or 2 block listings a month to like that many a day. Yeah, so that it was
John size. Yeah.
John, I think John slept for a couple of months then. Because John, do you have a pager that like goes off when some major blocklister?
Close. We utilize Slack, and we essentially take pretty much every communication that's coming into our team, whether it's our Service Cloud tickets, the Splunk logs, any of this monitoring that we have, we funnel over to our Slack instance, and through various icons and so on. It's a very visual but very persistent way of getting alerts to things that are happening literally real time. I chuckle sometimes, only sometimes, after hours if a Sev1 ticket drops into our queue, because our operations center is supposed to page that out to the on-call. I may be sitting in the living room and Slack bumps my phone and says, hey, ticket dropped and it's a Sev1. I'm down the hall and in my office before the page ever drops. So I'm just going, yeah, and already into the ticket. So
well, and for those that aren't as familiar with the terminology, because I don't know what a Sev1 is, what does that represent, or what does that mean?
Excellent question. Tickets come to us with different severities and priorities. There are 3 severities.
Okay.
And the severity is, how did I phrase this in an email to someone the other day? I need to know a thing. That's Sev3. Okay. A thing is broken. That's Sev2. And Sev1 is a client or entire service thing is down. And then you've got 2 priorities under each of those, normal and high. So if you've got a question, most of our tickets come through as a Sev3 normal. A question or a request, get to it in normal time. Occasionally those bump to a high, which means of Sev3s, you should get to that one first, and on up through the rest of them. The difference with Sev1 being a Sev1 normal means a single client is down. Sev1 high means a service is down, the whole of that service. In other words, payments is all down, or email sending is all down. And that should really be followed by an incident bridge being paged out to the various teams associated with that service. So that's why, as they're rolling through our Slack, they have various icons and
is that one
headlines.
like on fire, or someone like waving their
Literally,
arms?
yes, literally the icon next to it,
like
Sev1 is a little flame icon, and it says, immediate response required as part of the headline to it, so that no matter what type of device you're viewing it on,
it's bad.
Yeah. I can see it's almost like the fire department responding to a fire, like their boots on the ground and into their trucks, and yeah.
Well, we're a very small team, but we understand the impact and scope of the 2 major services that we support, payments and $4 billion worth of money that goes through there and email services with all 7 billion emails that go through it throughout the scope of the year. So if either one or both of those services is down, it's detrimental across multiple products within the company. So we're pretty quick to respond to just about anything that happens in our world, whether it be a Sev 3 or a Sev 1.
For sure.
So Kathryn, to your point, 10 years ago, email was free. It was new. Everybody was doing it. All the cool kids had it, and just send to it. Everybody loves to get an email. I mean, it's like what's his face there? Steve Martin in The Jerk. He was in the phone book. I mean, that was a thing. You got an email. I mean, and then email was coming to your phone. I mean, look at that. It follows me. It's awesome. I can get it anywhere. And then everybody caught on to that and started diverting, a lot into email. And now you're getting a ton of email. And exactly, Tara, it became, how do I make this stop? And the industry has shifted. I mean, there's so much email being sent that the folks who manage the infrastructure, whether that's us from a sending side or a Google from a receiving side, resources are finite, and they want to make sure that the resources aren't being wasted by unnecessary garbage mail, what we love to call spam. So they're starting to see the volume of email is increasing exponentially, and so is the volume of junk mail. So they are starting to tighten and tighten and tighten and make it more difficult for that type of mail to get in. That and the recipient has become more discriminating as well, because of the fact that now they get hundreds of emails a day. So, the example I've been giving over the years is if you were an animal rights organization, you would just blast out all your email to all your folks. But now you kind of got to look at it as the whale people don't want to hear about dogs and cats, and the dog people don't want to hear about cats and whales, and so on. So you need to make sure, and I keep summing it up in one sentence: send mail people want to the people who want it. So craft good content that is targeted for that specific individual. Target good dog information and send it to the person who likes dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, Shayne and I use that analogy all the time, especially when we're talking to clients who I think need a little guidance. And I can't tell you how often as a solutions engineer you hear someone say, I want to do an e-blast. And the word blast is like, whoa, what do you want to do? And I don't think people think about that anymore.
Right. Yeah.
But it's so important to send people what they want, because if they aren't looking at your emails, you're getting dinged, right? And if they're just deleting them right off the bat, and I mean, we're all guilty of doing that.
I talked to a potential client this morning where they have no sort of CRM to manage anything, and they're email blasting 18,000 people right now. Where I'm like, we can do a lot. Message. We can do a lot about that.
Well, everybody's getting the same message.
Exactly.
And I mean, what's right now going through my mind is if you don't get anything else out of this podcast session for a person who's watching it, if you're saying I don't have time to segment and target the message, you might as well just stop.
You're wasting it. Yeah.
Stop sending out the emails, because you're doing more harm than good by blasting everybody the same message.
Anyway, 10 years ago, bulk mail was set it and forget it. Just shove your list in, and then over here create an email, set it on a schedule, create another email, set it on another schedule, and so on. And that was great, and that worked then. That doesn't work now. I think the big issue we're seeing right now is a lot of organizations are in a state of crossing over. The people who are on the front lines, the marketing folks who are crafting those messages, and the folks who are actually responsible for getting those emails sent out, the scheduling, and so on, they're starting to understand the shift in the industry. The problem is the person in the corner office at C-level isn't. They're used to the old way of just send to this. And they are increasingly difficult to persuade that, you know, it's not about quantity anymore. It's about quality. Gmail is the best at what they do because they don't tell anyone what they do. But what we know is that they monitor their users' every action. And I mean every action. If you send an email into a Gmail inbox, their algorithm is watching whether that person lets it sit. How long did they let it sit? After they let it sit, did they open it? Did they take an action when they opened it? What was that action? Did they open it and delete it? Did they open it and mark it as spam? Did they open it and click through, the holy grail of all email messages? Did they open it and then just, that was it? They didn't do anything more with it. Do they save up your emails? Do they save up all their emails and then once a week, once a month, once every couple of weeks, once every couple of months, go back through and have, you know, spring cleaning day where they just go through and hit the promotions tab and down the list and go, that looks interesting, that looks interesting. The rest of this, you know, click the first one, shift key, click the last one, delete. That's damaging to you. If you're someone who is sending a lot of email to folks and they're only checking their inbox every couple, 3 weeks, and then deleting en masse like that, or worse, marking as spam in a big chunk like that, you're taking that domain reputation hit right then and there. I mean, 50 complaints in a single keystroke.
Well, I think that's something really important to explain too, and maybe you can dig into that a little bit more, John, because, you know, I mentioned when I first started in this industry, the key to email success was to go with a vendor who had a really good reputation. So Blackbaud, you know, that was one of the things that we used to promote about our servers is, look, they've got this 95, 98 reputation, and, you know, that you wanted to look for the server's reputation. And now you mentioned the sender's reputation, because that has become so important. And it's also important for people to understand, you know, if they're communicating up and talking to their executives, their directors about why we can't just send more email, they have to have the information to say, even if we leave Blackbaud and we go somewhere else, we're going to take our reputation with us. So we have to invest in building and maintaining this reputation right now. So can you explain a little bit about that sender reputation, John?
Yeah, that's great. Great.
Yeah, that's a good place to go, Kathryn. Thank you. The old days, as recently as 5 years ago, it used to be all about IP reputation, the sending IPs. Okay, and then with the advent of spammers and their behavior, that there were ways around that. You could spoof IP.
The IP reputation, John, you're talking about as an example, just to tie it back, that is like Blackbaud as an example would be the IP reputation that you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so
our sending IPs. Yeah. So since there were ways around that, you know, you could still effectively be sending a lot of junk mail, but over good IPs, it started to focus more on the sending domain. Who is sending the actual email over those IPs? IP reputation still matters, but it's kind of fallen by the wayside. They really drive on sending domain reputation now. And the thing is, and this is where we get into the whole dedicated IP, shared IP conversation back and forth. Essentially, every action you're taking and how your recipients are reacting to those actions is building or tearing down your domain reputation. So going back to our Gmail users, Gmail is looking at, you know, ShayneFloyd.org and seeing, wow, all right, so most users who get mail from ShayneFloyd.org tend to let it sit for a while. They open it, but they don't really seem to click through. They don't file spam complaints, but they're really not getting into it. We're gonna do two things with that. We're gonna look at the type of mail that ShayneFloyd.org is sending. So we're gonna look at that content, and we're gonna mark that type of content as content that people don't seem interested in. And we're going to tie that back to ShaneFloyd.org, because apparently he doesn't send email that people are interested in.
Not people that listen to this podcast. Not those people.
Everybody now is searching their inbox for ShaneFloyd.org going, really? What kind of junk does he send?
I don't have the .org. When we start talking good examples of good stuff, let's go thebasementseries.com.
Yeah.
We're gonna have good content on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's center source.
Well, let's explore KathrynHall.org.
Okay.
She sends out emails, but wow, everybody seems to click through. Everybody's taking an action on it. So now that type of content is being added to the algorithm, and her domain is getting a better reputation. Down the road, let's call it 3 months, Kathryn Hall is going straight to the inbox, and Shayne is sometimes the inbox, sometimes spam folder. Now let's talk about that JohnAllen.org guy. He sends anything to anyone all day long, 12, 18 emails a week going to every single person on his list. It's an 11 million person list, and email is free, baby. Just fire it out. I had a random thought. You should know about it. All 11 million of you. Whoosh, out it goes. So when my email hits, or rather his email hits the inbox, first few times it's hitting the inbox and people are like, oh my gosh, this is pure garbage. They're deleting it. They're marking it as spam. They're doing whatever. It's not going to take long before that algorithm learns, A, JohnAllen.org, nobody wants his email, and B, again, looking at the content of my email, they're going to match that up against other senders who are sending similar content. Let's go back to ShaneFloyd.org for a minute. Remember how he was kind of middle of the road? Sort of good, sort of not. He wasn't inflammatory like JohnAllen.org, but he wasn't, StKathrynHall.org.
Right.
What's going to happen with ShaneFloyd.org is he's going to get what we call gray barred. In other words, suddenly your mail is going to go into the spam folder. But if somebody clicks over into their spam folder and looks at your message, it has a big gray bar across the top of it that said, this message was put in your spam folder, either because messages from this sender often get marked as spam, or messages similar to this, speaks to the content issue, similar to this, get marked as spam. And it's got a big button that says, not spam, and the person can click that because some of the people were interested in ShaneFloyd.org. So those folks will train Gmail that they wanted. But it's something to take into consideration around how they're building the algorithm. It's not just solely your performance, but your content is being measured against people who are sending content similar to yours, and how Gmail recipients are reacting to content of that type overall. Plus, they're looking at how Gmail users are reacting to content from ShaneFloyd.org or KathrynHall.org or JohnAllen.org, and tying that directly back to you. So there's a lot of strings in the Gmail web that drive your reputation over there. And I focus on Gmail for a couple of reasons. Again, they're the best at what they do, but also the fact that they offer tools like Postmaster, where they will tell you about deliverability and reputation metrics and so on. And the one point I want to drive home about Postmaster is the only thing that Postmaster takes into consideration is the feedback data from Gmail users. They don't care what Yahoo users think about your mail, what AOL users think about your mail, what any Microsoft users think about your mail. They only focus on your Gmail experience. So you could see, and we've had some tickets come through about this, you could see an issue with everything else is doing really great, but your Gmail, this Postmaster report says the IP reputation is terrible, your sending domain is terrible, everything in your life is terrible. And you want to know why, because everything else outside of Gmail seems wonderful and happy. That's why. It's driven only by their users, and their users, for whatever reason, are not happy with whatever it is you're doing, or they're ecstatic with what you're doing.
So if I picked up my list and I moved somewhere else, I moved from Blackbaud to, email sender, mega email sender, what would happen when I did my first send to Gmail then, or to my list, including those Gmail?
Well, first of all, spammers tend to hop around a lot, okay? They send lots of mail and they pick up and move to somewhere else, and send lots of mail and pick up and move to somewhere else. So if you just, and it's in either direction. If you're leaving Blackbaud and going to megaemailsender.com, or if you're leaving megaemailsender.com and coming to Blackbaud, the situation is exactly the same. You have just basically duplicated a spammer behavior in blasting out to your 11 million people out of ESP-A, and now you're at ESP-B. And that's an excellent segue to what I was talking about way back when at the top of the call here, and that is warming up when you get to a new sender. You need to kind of, if you're using the same sending domain, it's already warm. The mailbox providers recognize your domain. It has a reputation already, okay? And your ESP, whomever it is, whether it's us or megaemailsender.com, they have a reputation too. Their IPs are nice and warm. But here's the thing, your domain is not associated with those new IPs. And you need to essentially introduce yourself to the mailbox providers and say, it's still us, but we're not over here anymore. We're over here, and it's okay.
So it's literally like making a first impression. Like you have to kind of introduce before it's I'm back under a new name or whatever it may be.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
And how long, what's a good warm-up period? What's the length of time to take?
Two terms here I'm going to use, warm up and ramp up. Warm up is when you are taking either a cold domain and cold IPs together, or one or the other is warm and one or the other is cold. If you're dealing with a situation where they're both warm, you can move to a ramp up, which, and there's no exact science to this, welcome to email, approximately 20 days to do a ramp up. A warm up can take you anywhere from 60 to 90 days. The giant asterisk on all of this is it depends on how smartly you warm up or ramp up. If it's a fresh warm up, the recommendation is, and you're going to laugh at me, and that's totally fine. The recommendation is send to your internal addresses.
That makes sense.
Then expand it to your contacts. Make sure you're hitting, the Gmails, the AOLs, the Yahoos, all the Microsoft domains. Make sure you're including them. Make sure you're including them equally. Don't show any favorites. Okay. And we're talking as little as 50 emails. Okay. Start out on Monday with 50. Go to Tuesday with 50. Wednesday, double it to 100. Double is the magic number. In the eyes of the mailbox providers, anything more than double the volume we're used to seeing from you is a red flag. You are behaving like a spammer. Now combine that with you just moved from here to there, and you might as well just spray paint spammer on your forehead.
So if you have 1 million emails on your list,
start out with 50. 50 of your best, and then start moving your way up. You're not going to go outside of your 30-day engagement period for the first 2/3 of your warm-up or ramp-up period. It's not until you get to the end where you're going with, okay, I'm going from my green lit addresses, the ones I know are the winners. These people just adore my email, and they do all the right things with it. Now you can expand out to your 60-day, then you can expand out to your 90-day, and so on from there.
So would you suggest like certain like what's the kind of content you're sending during this warming period?
You
Like,
want to make it
align with your
content
strategy.
that is, a lot of times what you'll find is welcome series kind of stuff. Just very bland, very, very middle of the road. Nothing that's going to spike a reaction. Just
safe content.
Exactly. That's the word I was looking for. Safe content.
But still
Okay.
targeted.
You want to
targeted and relevant
content to the folks who are just going to lap it up, because that's what you want. You want the mailbox provider to go, okay, it's ShaneFloyd.org again. He used to be over there. Now he's over here. But people seem to be reading his email and stuff like that. All right, we'll accept that Shayne is now coming from these new IPs. The other recommendation, and this one is probably hard to take, you need to make a clean break. If you're sending from over there at your old place and from over here at your new place, that's kind of being a spammer, at least behavior-wise. So, you know, clean break it. The only time I will argue against that is if when you're over here, you're using one domain, and if you're over here, you're using a different domain, even if it's a subdomain. Subdomains and root domains are pretty well siloed from each other reputationally. So I'm a big proponent of creating a subdomain to do your bulk mail sends. If you are blackbaud.com, create, you know, marketing.blackbaud.com or email.blackbaud.com, something that breaks it away from the mothership, and use that for your bulk mail sending.
So if you're a national organization with chapters, rather than having everybody use @nationalorg.org, they would use chicago.nationalorg.org.
Cleveland.national, Buffalo.national, Charleston.national.
There are benefits to that, is what you're saying.
Oh, yes. The other thing that it does for you is if you do land yourself in, as far as reputation goes, it helps you identify where your rogue chapter is. And I say that with all due respect, every organization has one.
The rogue chapter.
That rogue chapter out there that just says, you know what?
I had that rogue beer in the fridge that would have been the perfect pun here.
Perfect. Yeah, the perfect item. Well, yeah, gosh, those guys need to be held accountable.
Yeah, I have a tangential question then. How much can you mitigate of this, or does it mitigate it at all, that you establish the proper technical sender authentication like SPF and DKIM and whatever the other one.
And let's just quickly
it's like you're in my head. It's weird.
We got to get these acronyms explained. So ESP is email service provider.
Yes.
Which is and IP is part of the internet service provider's infrastructure, right? IP stands for what? Internet protocol.
Internet protocol.
Okay. And so Blackbaud, as an example, Blackbaud is an email service provider.
Correct.
Because somebody might pay us to send mass emails through us, and
essentially
part of the mechanism of that is IP.
Yeah, email service provider is what we do. We provide email services.
Okay.
Where it gets a little.
Don't try to make me feel stupid.
Well, we already know you're a fairly median email sender.
Terrible.
I think we're all learning a lot here. I'm getting some good stuff.
The one that gets confusing is you'll hear us use the term mailbox provider, which is a Gmail, a Yahoo, an AOL. A lot of times that gets transposed with the term internet service provider or ISP. That happens because most of your ISPs also provide you with an email address. How many times have you signed up for, Comcast, and now welcome to Comcast, here's your cable, here's your TV, and here's your new email address.
Here's your 2,000 emails you've never checked.
Right, yeah, exactly. Every ISP does it. So in a sense, they are not just an internet service provider giving you access to the World Wide Web, but they are also an ESP providing you with email service. Because the fact that the root of their business is primarily providing internet access, we call them ISPs. We call the folks who provide email inboxes, and that's all they do, a mailbox provider. And then again, full circle, we're the folks who send out the mails, and that's all we provide. We don't provide internet, we don't provide inboxes, we just provide a way to shotgun your mail out there. We are an email service provider. So Kathryn, it's like she's in my head, and I wish she would turn off the lights when she leaves, because otherwise you'll see all the dust. But she segued beautifully into one of my, it runs from the bane of my existence to my sole reason for being sometimes, and that is authentication. Authentication didn't used to matter, but you know, back then it was okay to just send all the email to all the peoples. This has changed as well, and Gmail, again, is leading the charge on this. We went from IP reputation, because that could be circumvented, to domain reputation. Now we're moving into authenticated mail versus unauthenticated mail. Essentially, authentication is a way to prove that A, the ESP has your permission to send basically as you, and B, proving that we're us. So SPF is not just for sunblock anymore. You're going to ask me to explain what the actually, it's sender.
I was going to do it.
Sender policy framework, if I remember correctly.
There will be a quiz after this, guys.
There will be, and I hope I don't have to take it. You grade on a curve. And DKIM, which is domain keys identifier something. I don't remember the last one. It replaced something Yahoo actually came out with many years ago. The industry as a whole looked at what Yahoo was doing and went, well, that's potential, but what you're doing with it isn't quite right. Let's borrow that and hammer away on it, and now we have an industry standard. So cool. We recommend, there's a third part of this called DMARC. Don't even ask me what DMARC stands for, cause
I thought that was, don't even, it was part of that.
We're going to need to weave in some
what is
diagrams
that
here.
one?
SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Where's the whiteboard?
Domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance. That's why I don't remember it. That's a lot of $5 words right there. Essentially, in a nutshell, DMARC is a policy. It's a set of instructions. And essentially, if you have a DMARC record published, you're providing instructions to the receiving mail transfer agent, which is the email server that they have on the mailbox provider side that accepts the message from us. We have one that sends it out. They have one that receives it. We call them MTAs. The MTAs basically talk to each other, and they look for authentication. And if the authentication is there, they look to see, or is not there, they look to see if you have a DMARC policy or set of instructions published, which will tell that receiving email server what to do with that message. Okay, if failed authentication, what do you want me to do? Tell me. If you don't have a DMARC policy in place, it will just accept the message and probably put it in the spam folder, because it really can't be authenticated that it's from ShayneFloyd.org. And maybe that's why your campaigns are so, we may need to examine your authentication there, Shayne. So SPF is easy enough. We've got a couple of host names. There's one specific to the Luminate product, and then there's one for all of the rest of Blackbaud, including our corporate email. You just enter this host name into your SPF record and your DNS, and you're covered there. Okay, that one's fairly easy. Okay, all the work is basically on the client. They can pull this information from our email resource center. It's a living document in the form of a website that's out there, and you just hunt down authentication, and all of this is right there. It will give you the exact host names. It's detailed by product. So you just basically look Chinese menu style. I have Luminate. Okay, it says put this in my SPF record. Boom, you're covered. DKIM's a little bit harder. It involves work on both sides. Essentially, the client files a ticket with us saying, hey, I want to deploy DKIM signing. What do I do? My team gets that, and we provide you with what's called a public key. So essentially, the authentication is made up of a key set. There's a public key and a private key. The public key is public, so it's published to your DNS where anyone can see it. Doesn't matter if they see it, because you have to have the private key to make it actually work. The private key we keep, and it goes on our MTAs. And it's stored on the MTAs.
You've got a lot of acronyms there, John.
You must work at Blackbaud.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Exactly.
I had a conversation with my father one day, and when I was done, I honestly paused and thought, what language am I speaking?
Right.
It was a string of acronyms, and I went, who'd have thunk I'd have understood a word of this, 20 years ago. So anyway, we will provide you with the public key. You hand that off to your DNS person, they publish it to your DNS. You let us know that that work is done. You have to do that part first. If we go ahead and just deploy on our side to the MTAs, we're now signing something that you don't have in your DNS, and that means your authentication will fail.
So that private and public have to sync up and be at the same time.
But your DNS record has to sync up with what we have in our machines. So we put both public and private. They link up on our system. And essentially, when your message gets delivered to Gmail, Gmail looks at your DNS and sees that you have a public key. It then looks in the email header, sees that the message came from us, looks back at us and says, did you sign this? And we have indicated in the email header that we signed it. They validate that, and the message is accepted as authenticated. If the key doesn't match, if the key is somehow corrupted, or, and this one gets tricky to find sometimes, if your internal system is somehow accepting the message through one MTA and then internally forwarding it to another one, sometimes that DKIM will get stripped off. Because the DKIM is between us and that first email server. It's not between us and the second email server when it gets forwarded internally. So if it gets stripped off, now the mail that's hitting that second one is technically not authenticated. It doesn't happen very often. Just about the time we forget about that is when we get another ticket around it, and it resurfaces again. But essentially, yeah.
When you say that your reason for being is talking about DKIM and DMARC and SPF, basically, if somebody comes to you, you've got a client who's having trouble delivering mail, is that one of the first things you look at?
That is the first thing I look at. That is the first thing I look at, and here's the order that I look at it. First, I look to see if you've published DMARC. If you have,
number one.
If you have, then I look to see if you have what we dub custom DKIM with us, because here's the thing, we DKIM sign our own domains as they're coming out of the email servers because they have a domain. But for DMARC to work, we have to be signing your domain. We have to be signing ShaneFloyd.org. We have to be signing KathrynHall.org. We can't be signing, netcommunity1. Blah, 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 which is a really long domain that our system is using. So I look at DMARC. If you have DMARC, I immediately look to see, do you have DKIM with us where we're signing for your domain? If you don't, I stop right there, because you must have DKIM signing with us for your domain in order to publish a DMARC policy. Here's the thing about DMARC. It does not look to see if your authentication fails. It looks to see if your authentication passes. The thing is, Only passing equals passing.
Anything else?
This sounds like
Fail.
the secret code that you need to know to get into.
Yes, it is exactly that, because here's where it gets weird. Obviously, everybody jumps to, well, if it's failing, it's not passing. Right. Fail does not equal pass. But here's the one everybody forgets about or assumes incorrectly. Not present also does not equal pass.
Honorable mention.
Nope.
Not
No
even that?
honorable mention.
Okay.
DMARC kicks in if you don't have authentication present, if you don't have DKIM with us signing for your domain, if it's not there, that's not passing. It kicks in your DMARC policy, and if your DMARC policy is set to reject, guess what happens to all the email?
Ooh, ouch.
Well, so
That's
I
why I
got
always
so many
look
questions.
at DMARC first.
Yeah. So we've got, I think one thing we've accomplished today is we've confirmed and solidified how complex this issue is. That's clear. A lot of these issues, I feel like we need to do a follow-up session and do maybe some screen shares on exactly, I want to show people if they were looking at the screen and setting DMARC or DKIM or doing these things, where do they do them? What does it look like? I mean, we're there's a wide spectrum of technical capability in our customer set, right? Some folks are very technically savvy and some are not at all. So I want to be able to, help that audience on either end of the spectrum, mostly on the end of the spectrum of people who are not technical. So maybe we do a follow-up session on that. For people that are, for example, using the new NXT email sender functionality, pretty basic tool set. Do they need to know about this stuff? Do they need to go and know about DMARC and DKIM and set all that stuff up?
Yep.
They do.
And
Well, my question,
Yeah.
sorry, I was just going to say, so based on, I don't know if a percentage is the best way to ask this, because I came from the fundraising side, so I definitely wasn't the communications person. How many nonprofits have someone really skilled in understanding email delivery in those positions to have said conversations with you?
I don't have hard data to back this up, but my response is going to be probably not many. They are going to focus more on, the marketing and fundraising staff than they are going to focus on someone to ensure that their email program is set up technically correct.
Sure.
And in all fairness, a lot of times that's because an organization isn't the size of, giant
Totally.
national kidney
Smaller
heart,
shops,
whatever .org. They're a mom and pop. And grandson Billy on the weekends when he's home from college is basically their IT department. And nothing against Billy, because we've all been Billy, let's face it. We're that person in the family.
Billy probably knows more than I do right now.
Nothing against Billy, but Billy is trying to fit it in between studies and his girlfriend and his parties and whatever. So you might not get always A grade service from Billy. I mean, his rates are right, but
they all have the best of intentions.
His schedule, So, and to further screw things up even more, back to what Shayne mentioned about, all of these isolated little pieces and drilling in on them because, everybody's at a different level of understanding and so on. Let me further screw up the mix by saying every DNS provider is not the same either. So when we provide a public key for DKIM, for instance, we only provide the key. We don't provide the actual text record for you to publish, because Cloudflare does it one way, GoDaddy does it another way, NetSolutions does it a third way, DreamHost does it a fourth way. And we don't want to break your DNS by saying, here, just plug this in, because it isn't that simple. So a lot of times you've got to reach out to a DNS support person. Unfortunately, what we've run into with many of the DNS providers is their infrastructure supports DKIM and SPF and all the fun stuff, but they as an organization don't support it. So they will point you to where you do the magic, And they will point you to probably a help file somewhere, and then you're on your own.
So,
Oh yeah, people love a good
scary
knowledge-based article.
yeah.
Yeah.
So question, John, if you are moving, say, from one internal Blackbaud system to another, like you're using Online Express or Blackbaud Net Community, and you move to Illuminate Online, do you need to do this setup over again? Same for moving
Yes and no.
OLX to RENXT email.
I'll give you a perfectly ambiguous answer. Yes and no. And the reason for that is simply this. Our sending system, Blackbaud Communication Services, is split into 2 data centers. There are 2 instances of it. One, up until the advent of NXT or Next Gen Email, has been solely for Luminate because they send, humongous, insane volumes of enterprise level bulk mail. Okay, everybody else had their own data center and was working from there. So essentially, when you applied for DKIM, we would ask you what product, and we would assign that to the data center. Never the twain shall meet until Next Gen Email. And now they're hopping the fence and swimming in Luminate's pool. So what we started doing January of 19 was, if we get a DKIM request, doesn't matter if it's for Illuminate client, for an RE client, for a whomever, OLX, anybody, we deploy it across both data centers. That way, the client doesn't have to think about it again. The client can move between, and if they want to send out of the old way this time and the new way that time, and then back to the, and flip-flop back and forth.
That was going to be my other question is, they can do both with RE and XT and OLX today. Okay, I wanted to confirm that because I started to second guess myself.
Yeah.
If you had DKIM deployed through us prior to,
like if you did a migration,
like December 18, officially January 19. If you have it deployed prior to that, you probably do not have it in both data centers. The other thing is we allowed Luminate the flexibility, and this is something that was inherited by me from past generations. You were allowed to bring your own selector, which when you get into DKIM, we'll talk about what a selector is. But essentially, it's one of the key components when you publish that DNS entry. We let people over in the Luminate side kind of play loosey-goosey with those, whereas over on the other side of the house, we were regimented to SM being the default selector. So when we made the decision to cross over, shall we say, and deploy in both sides of the house, we also made the decision that unilaterally our default selector is SM. You don't get a choice anymore. The idea behind originally offering a choice, as I understood it, was there were clients who wanted to bring their own selector. And in the 2 years that I had been working with that prior to making the executive decision to eliminate that, nobody had ever come with their own, not a single site. So, I mean, what good is a service if nobody uses it? So we just eliminated it. And it helps us align. Everything aligns now. Everybody gets into one boat, and we're all rowing in the same direction. So
it's always a plus.
We do have some cleanup on some older clients, and essentially what we're doing, every time somebody emails us around an email issue, whether it's delivery or deliverability, pop quiz, what's the difference? I'll let you think about that a moment while I continue. We basically go look at their record, and if they have a selector on the LO side that is non-new standard, we go ahead and have them update it. We update it in the MTAs, and they're future-proofed, essentially. Because should the day come when we decide to smash everybody together into one unified instance of Blackbaud Communication Services for email sending, that's going to need to happen. So we're trying to get it as we find them, as they come to us, we go ahead and make those changes. Those folks will already be out of the way and done when it comes time to make a campaign to say, okay, we got to go out and talk to everybody. Let's identify the clients who aren't using the standard and get them looped in, coordinate some time with them where we can make the change and so on. They'll be, like I say, future-proofed. So you've had enough time to think about it. Kathryn, you don't get to answer because
Oh, I was like, go to Kathryn. I forgot the question.
I know the questions went by quick too. Yeah, the question was.
The question is, and I'll even beef up the question a little bit here.
Oh boy, is that good or bad?
Is there a difference between the terms delivery and deliverability? And if there is, what's the difference?
Well, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to answer part A of the question. Yes, there is a difference. Now, someone else can
That's
answer.
the easy part.
Now you throw it to Tara.
Yeah.
Such a gentleman this guy is.
The delivery is when it actually makes it. The deliverability is all the hoops to get it in the box. Inbox.
So very close. That's
so close. I'll take close.
Family Feud
Good job, Tara.
might give you that one.
Okay.
Essentially, it's this. Delivery was the message successfully handed off from the sending email server to the receiving server? In other words, did we get a 250 OK response back?
Okay.
That's it. Delivery. Deliverability. What happened to it next? Did it go to the inbox? Did it go to the spam folder? Was it filtered away silently? All of those little things that happen to it after it's been actually accepted by their MTA.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I see other email sending companies advertising, they might even say it's deliverability. We've got 99% email deliverability, and what they really mean is delivery.
Yeah.
And they might even say delivery, but people get those confused. And really what they're talking about is, yeah, we're good at sending those emails out. We just batch them and
they go straight to that spam.
Right, they might go straight to the spam. And
yeah,
I think it's interesting, John, that we have the service that checks to see where they land.
Yeah.
Which you hold the keys to?
Is it a private or public key?
Exactly. It's both. You got to have both or it doesn't work. That's how encryption works. No, we use a service called Return Path. They essentially monitor by way of seed addresses that we attach to random campaigns. And we try and hit, at least on the LO side, we try and hit every client once a month. Just helps get kind of a flow of where we're going. We do that for our systems. It's us. We have the subscription with Return Path to basically monitor our systems so that we can see any deliverability issues or any delivery issues. We'll use that data if there are client escalations, someone suddenly sees a drop in deliverability or opens or clicks or whatever, and they flag it. We'll then go to that data specific to ShayneFloyd.org and go, okay, let's look back over the last 30, 60, 90, 120 days and say, all right, he was doing it. Yeah, we see what you see. So let's examine why, what's changed, So that's why we do it. We do encourage our clients to get their own subscription to a service similar to that. Get Return Path if you want, get 250 OK. There's a couple of those different providers out there. Absolutely. Keep in mind, the reason we have ours is to monitor our systems, which means our settings are set very baseline. You can individualize your settings to how your list makeup is, literally per campaign. So that's why it's beneficial to you to have your own type of service for that monitoring. Plus, it's isolating your data. If you do get Return Path, they work with us and you roll up your data into our aggregate, so we're still able to see what's going on for the campaigns that we seed of yours. But it means you can do whatever you need to do on your side too. You can seed every one if you want. You can seed critical ones or a particular type of campaign and see how they're being received, etc. So I strongly recommend that type of service.
It's becoming really clear that this is a science. I think we could probably spend a whole session talking about the art of writing copy and such. But the getting the email delivered, there is a whole science behind this.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. There's art and science to both sides of this. You can be awesome at content. You can be awesome at what's the word? Begins with S. Kathryn, help me.
Segmentation.
Thank you. I kept thinking segregation. No, that's
Yeah, it's easy when I'm in your head. I just look around and pull the word off the shelf.
Dust it off a little bit, and there you go. You can be a master at all of those things, but if your domain reputation is garbage or you're not authenticating, your time is wasted because it's not going to get where you want it to get. And the converse is true as well. If you are set up on the tech side to get into any inbox you want, but you got Billy writing your content and sending to his girlfriend and her family just to try and impress them that he can do all of this, your domain reputation will suffer, and all the best tech in the world isn't going to get you out of the spam folder.
It won't last. Yeah.
It has to go hand in hand. You've got to be sending the mail people want to the people who want it, and you've got to be sending it in a way, in other words, a schedule that works for people, not too much, but not too little. You want to avoid smothering them, but you want to avoid you never call, you never write. You want to make sure that you're doing things like don't hide the opt-in, don't hide the unsubscribe link. Yes, the unsubscribe link is required by the CAN-SPAM Act. We all get it. It's terrible. We don't want anyone to break up with us. But here's the thing: we'd rather that they broke up and we remained friends than they went all basic instinct on us through their inbox.
Well, and maybe they'll communicate with you otherwise. Maybe they don't want email and they want a good old-fashioned letter or a phone call style of thing. No reason to burn bridges.
The guy lost his wife to cancer. He signs up for a cancer organization to donate once a year on the anniversary of her passing or the anniversary of their marriage or the anniversary of her birth date, whatever. And he doesn't want anything else to do with your emails, your whatever. He's got his calendar reminder set, let him alone. If he hasn't responded to your emails, let him be. You're still going to get that $100 from him. So
cool. Let's I'm going to be, I think while it's fresh on my mind, organize some notes on what I want to do on session 2, because one of our goals of this podcast is for people to have really tangible things they can go do, and I'm walking away very enlightened and informed, but I think I want session 2 I want to put some things on the screen that'll help clients go, okay, here's step 1, step 2, step 3, and then an increasing order of priority of what I want to do to take action to be more successful in engaging my audience. And if that means reaching out to less people, but more effective in the ones that actually I do reach out to, I love it. I appreciate you guys. Helping us with this session.
Awesome stuff.
I think that the takeaway from this one is the technical stuff that you have to do so that your art and the great copy that you write and the great segmentation that you do will work. So, and I put a link into the chat that you'll see that goes to some of those basic authentication services that on our email deliverability website, and that whole website is just chock full of information about what you need to do. But
I'll definitely go study that link.
SPF, DKIM, DMARC, what they are and how you do it.
And since it's such a critical component, if you want to vote or a hand raise as to what to put into section 2, I would say focus there. That's something that clients
focus on
should know about.
You said?
What's that?
You said focus on DMARC next time?
I say focus on authentication for next time.
Authentication, I'm sorry, okay.
Break it out into thirds, and talk about DKIM, SPF, DMARC, get really down into it, because, if it's unfamiliar to you and you're watching this, it flew by and it's alphabet soup to you. So let's spend a session where we get down into the nitty gritty about it and why it's important and how to use it and how to implement it. And because that's beneficial to existing clients as well as anybody new coming on board. I'm trying to kind of see, is there a way of easily leveraging part of the onboarding process, and maybe even going so far as to start making it mandatory that if you're signing up with Blackbaud, you must implement email authentication before you can send through our system.
Yeah.
Set your best foot forward when you're introducing yourself to the mailbox providers coming from your new ESP. You know, let's do it right. Let's not do it after the fact trying to solve a problem. Let's prevent a problem. Who knew? Proactive, not reactive.
Yeah, I
I like it.
Cool. All right, y'all.
Well, this has been...
I normally have some like good fade out music here, but you know, I always run into trouble with my Tara knows very well how much trouble I have.
Hum it. You should hum it aloud.
That's not happening. This is more like hip hop stuff here.
You don't have a harmonica you can pull out there, Shayne?
No, I have my guitar pretty handy,
box, a guitar, come on, an accordion, anything, tuba.
I'd love to see somebody pick up a tuba from under their desk right now.
That would be fantastic.
You can faintly hear the music.
Yeah. But you need Billy to come help you with your music.
Hey, that's one thing Billy's really good at, I hear.
Weekend is coming up. Billy might be free.
Well, thanks, guys. This has been super great, and I'm looking forward to round 2 to kind of dive in even more.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me over.
Bye.
Yeah,
Until
we'll talk
next
soon.
time.
We'll set up another session. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank
All right,
you.
everybody.
See you, John.
Bye.
See you, Kathryn.
We'll see you.
Bye.